The chance to begin again. The golden land of opportunity and adventure.
Some noodles. One of the things that I've always really liked about living in Fuzhou is that you can still see lots of old architecture here. You can spend a long time walking around the old winding streets or looking at the old buildings that are dotted across the city. But in the 4 years that I've lived here, Fuzhou's skyline has really changed, and lots of new, modern, even futuristic buildings have gone up across the city. I think a lot of this new architecture looks really cool, and especially at night, it's given Fuzhou a really vibrant, modern feel. This is the Fuzhou Haisha Olympic Sports Center. It was built just a few years ago for the China National Youth Games. The sports center is made up of these three big egg-shaped buildings in front of a large stadium. The buildings have been designed with lots of curved lines and circles, and with all the neon lights, this area has a really futuristic, almost spaceship-like feel. This isn't really a typical example of Fuzhou's modern architecture, but I definitely think it's one of the most interesting. It's just such a big and unusual space. It's almost kind of spooky. This is the CBD, and for me this is really the best example of Fuzhou's modern architecture and new skyline. I've spoken to local people about this area, and some of them say that they think the buildings look very Western in design. And I find that really interesting because to me, and some of the other foreigners that live here, these buildings are a very typical example of modern East Asian architecture. Now it's true that skyscrapers were first built in places like the UK and America, but our skyscrapers and the skylines of our cities just look very different from this. For example, in London there's an area called Canary Wharf that has lots of skyscrapers and big buildings, but they're not covered in neon lights and they certainly don't have writing moving up and down the side. And that's in London. Outside of London, few British cities have any skyscrapers at all. So when I and other foreigners see this kind of skyline, we don't think of European or American cities. We think of cities like Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Shanghai. That area over there is kind of like Fuzhou's financial district. Many of the big buildings are banks. Most of them were completed in the last year or so, and I think it's a great addition to Fuzhou's skyline. The buildings have a very obvious, modern East Asian look, and the little light show is fun without being over the top. But what makes this area different from others is how clearly you can see the reflections of the buildings in the river. It really makes it an amazing view. The buildings have helped to make this part of the riverfront a really nice area. There's not really anything to actually do here, but it's a nice place to come for a walk, maybe with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and you can often see older people singing and playing traditional music here. Or you could just get some snacks, come down, relax, and look out at the lights across the river. I grew up watching these classic cyberpunk films like Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner. Now the cities those films are set in are very futuristic, with lots of tall buildings covered in neon lights. So in a kind of geeky way, it always feels cool to me when I'm going for a run along the riverfront, or just sat outside somewhere and I look up and I see that same style of buildings. I can kind of imagine that I'm living in a city from one of those films. It's quite an experience to live in Fuzhou, isn't it?